Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to address a subject that is critical to our spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being. We all know that life can be filled with various challenges, but some challenges come from places we least expect. Some obstacles are not physical. They're not just external. Some of the greatest threats to our peace come from within our relationships. And I want to talk to you about something that is often overlooked, but it can have a devastating impact on our lives. Recognizing the signs of toxic, destructive individuals. Individuals who, intentionally or unintentionally, are operating under an influence that is demonic in nature. Now, when I say demonic, I'm not talking about the red-faced horned creature from ancient folklore. No. I'm talking about people who live among us, people who seem like they are good, decent, well-meaning individuals. But underneath, they carry with them destructive spirits that can rob us of our joy, peace, and purpose. It's time to recognize the signs and guard ourselves. Peace is a precious commodity, one of the greatest gifts that we can possess. Yet there are individuals in our lives whose very presence disrupts the peace we are meant to enjoy. Have you ever walked into a room filled with tension, felt the atmosphere shift, and realized that your sense of calm had been stolen away? It's like a weight settles on your chest and you can't shake it off no matter how hard you try. That is one of the clearest signs that someone around you is not operating in harmony with your well-being. They're stealing your peace. Peace is not just the absence of conflict, the presence of wholeness and tranquility within. Peace is a quiet assurance that we are exactly where we need to be. But when you're around someone who robs you of this sense of calm, it's as if they're pulling you out of alignment with your true self, leaving you disoriented and drained. You may find that after spending time with them, you're left feeling emotionally exhausted, mentally foggy, and spiritually depleted. This may not happen all at once, but gradually. At first, you might brush it off as a small annoyance, thinking that maybe you're just tired or stressed from something else. But over time, you'll begin to notice a pattern. Every encounter with this person results in the same feeling of unrest. It's like your emotional and spiritual batteries are drained, and no matter how much you try to recharge, their influence keeps you in a state of depletion. Consider the example of Rachel, a woman who had a friend she considered to be close. Every time they spent time together, Rachel couldn't put her finger on why she felt worse afterward. Her friend's conversations were always heavy, filled with complaints and negativity. No matter how much Rachel tried to offer support or encouragement, her friend never seemed satisfied. It wasn't until Rachel started reflecting more deeply that she realized her friend wasn't just venting, she was unloading her emotional baggage, draining Rachel in the process. Rachel found herself becoming anxious, uncertain, and even depressed after their meetings. She had given so much of herself to this toxic relationship that it began to affect her own mental and emotional health. Peace is foundational to living a healthy, fulfilling life. It's not about avoiding conflict, but about being able to confront challenges from a place of calm strength. If someone in your life consistently steals that peace, you are being pulled out of alignment with your purpose. Recognizing that someone's presence is stealing your peace is the first step to reclaiming it. Sometimes that means having the courage to set boundaries, to say no, or to limit your contact with individuals whose influence drags you into chaos. Emotional manipulation is one of the most insidious ways that toxic individuals undermine our lives. These people have a unique ability to twist your emotions, making you question your own sanity and sense of reality. You may find yourself walking on eggshells around them, constantly trying to avoid saying or doing something that might set them off. They may appear charming at first, but over time you begin to notice subtle shifts, comments that belittle your self-worth, actions that leave you doubting your own perception, or gestures that make you feel guilty for things you didn't do. Manipulation can take many forms, But one of the most common tactics is the use of guilt. A manipulative person will make you feel responsible for their emotions or actions, even when you're not. They'll say things like, if you really cared about me, you would do this for me. Or, you're the only one who understands me, and yet you're always leaving me hanging. These statements may seem harmless at first, but they plant seeds of doubt and guilt in your heart. Over time, you begin to feel like you're walking a tightrope, constantly trying to meet their emotional needs while sacrificing your own. What makes emotional manipulation so dangerous is that it operates in the background of your mind, making you second guess your own instincts. You might find yourself apologizing when you haven't done anything wrong, or altering your behavior to appease them, even at the cost of your own happiness. This is how a manipulative person begins to take control of your emotions, steering you away from your own truth and creating a sense of dependence. Let's look at Nina's story. Nina had a close friend who would always turn their conversations into emotional blackmail. If Nina didn't show up for every event her friend planned, she was accused of not being a good friend. If she expressed any kind of frustration or hurt feelings, her friend would immediately play the victim, turning the conversation back onto Nina, making her feel as though she was the one causing the problems. Nina started to feel like she couldn't express her emotions without being accused or guilt-tripped. Slowly, she became afraid of being honest, afraid of showing vulnerability because it always seemed to come back and bite her. This manipulation is a reflection of a deeper demonic influence, a desire to weaken your emotional stability, to make you feel small and powerless. These individuals thrive on keeping you in a state of confusion, making you doubt your worth and your judgment. They operate from a place of insecurity themselves, seeking to control others to validate their own sense of self. But the damage they cause to your emotional health is real. When someone is constantly manipulating your emotions, they're not just hurting you. They're trying to trap you in a cycle of emotional dependence that serves their needs, not yours. A key sign of manipulation is the pattern of behavior. Someone who consistently twists your words, uses your vulnerabilities against you, and makes you feel as though your emotions don't matter. They may even try to control your actions by making you feel guilty or responsible for their happiness. If you find yourself constantly apologizing, justifying your actions, or second-guessing your emotions in the presence of someone, you need to take a step back. Emotional manipulation is a powerful tool of control. And if you're not careful, it will strip away your confidence, your self-respect, and your ability to trust your own instincts. This manipulation isn't always overt. Sometimes it's subtle. Small comments, gentle criticisms, or a smile that feels more like a mask than genuine affection. But over time, it builds up and can create emotional turmoil. It is in these subtle shifts that the manipulator gains control over your emotional world. They leave you in a constant state of uncertainty, making it impossible for you to trust your own feelings or judgments. One of the most destructive tactics used by individuals operating under negative influences is their ability to sow discord and division wherever they go. They thrive on conflict. It's as if they have an innate ability to create misunderstandings, turn friends against one another, and tear down relationships that have been built over years. What makes this so dangerous is that at first glance, these individuals may seem like perfectly good friends or colleagues. They don't come across as overtly malicious, yet they always manage to stir the pot, causing chaos and confusion that leaves everyone around them hurt and at odds. It begins with small, subtle remarks. They may make an offhand comment about someone's character or question their intentions, always with a smile, always seemingly innocent. But over time, you begin to notice the effect it has on the people around them. They don't directly cause fights or arguments themselves. They simply plant the seeds of doubt in people's minds. It's as though they are setting up situations where others begin to mistrust each other without ever really having to lift a finger. The heart of division is suspicion. Once a person's mind has been infected with doubt, once they start questioning the motives of those around them, true unity becomes impossible. What was once a solid, trusting relationship is now fractured, filled with tension, resentment, and misunderstanding. And the person who sowed the discord, they stand back watching the chaos unfold, knowing that they've successfully turned people against each other. Consider Tom, who had a colleague at work who was always just asking questions. Whenever Tom and his teammates would come together to collaborate, this person would suddenly raise concerns about someone's work, whether it was really up to standard or if they really understood the project. At first, it was just harmless banter, but slowly, Tom noticed that his team was growing tense. Colleagues who had once been supportive of one another were now questioning each other's motives. Trust was eroding, and people began to hesitate before offering help. The atmosphere in the office shifted from collaboration to competition, all because one person had sown enough seeds of doubt to cause division. The impact of such behavior is far-reaching. It doesn't just create personal discord, it can destroy entire communities, families, and organizations. A demonic influence doesn't need to tear people apart through overt conflict. It only needs to nudge them towards suspicion, to whisper half-truths in their ears, to divide them with subtlety. And when people are divided, they are weak. They can no longer function in harmony, and their collective power is diminished. Example, imagine a family where one member continuously spreads negativity, making small remarks about another member's decisions or questioning their actions in ways that seem innocuous at first. Are you sure that's the right choice? Or, I wouldn't do it that way, but it's your life. These small seeds of doubt begin to sprout into larger issues, leading to arguments that tear apart the unity of the family. The person sowing these doubts is not directly causing conflict, but they are the ones benefiting from the confusion and the division. Their motives, perhaps to control, perhaps to isolate themselves from others, or perhaps simply to enjoy the drama. Regardless, the result is the same: division and destruction. The spirit behind division is one that seeks to keep people fragmented, weak, and ineffective. It understands that a divided house cannot stand, and so it works quietly, undetected, and unnoticed until the damage is done. It is the spiritual equivalent of a cancer that spreads slowly, destroying the unity that is necessary for any group or relationship to thrive. Confusion is one of the most effective tools used by those who wish to control others. The ability to keep someone in a state of uncertainty is a subtle but powerful form of manipulation. A person who is confused can't make clear decisions. They can't think straight. They can't trust themselves or their intuition. And in that state, they become malleable, easier to influence, and easier to control. This is a hallmark of demonic behavior, keeping others in a fog, unable to discern the truth, unable to find their way. If someone in your life is always creating situations that leave you confused, whether through contradictory statements, mixed messages, or a constant stream of unanswered questions, they are stealing your clarity. The clarity that you need to live your life with purpose and direction. It starts with small contradictions, promises that are never fulfilled, plans that change without explanation, words that don't match actions. Over time, these contradictions create an emotional and psychological fog that makes it difficult for you to see things clearly. You start doubting yourself. You start second-guessing your decisions. You lose trust in your own judgment. In Amanda's case, she had a friend who would frequently say one thing and do another. One day, her friend would promise to spend time with her, but the next day, they would cancel, offering vague excuses. They would talk about future plans with excitement, but when the time came, they would be nowhere to be found. Amanda was caught in a cycle of confusion. She didn't know if her friend truly cared for her or if she was being taken for granted. This uncertainty weighed on her, causing her to feel emotionally unstable, not knowing where she stood or what to expect next. Her friend's behavior wasn't malicious in the traditional sense, but it kept Amanda in a perpetual state of doubt. The longer you stay in this state of confusion, the harder it becomes to make decisions with confidence. Your sense of self begins to erode because your inner compass is being compromised. You start to question your ability to trust others and even yourself. This confusion over time leaves you paralyzed. You can't make forward progress. You're too unsure of everything to take the next step. What's truly damaging about confusion is that it robs you of the clarity you need to move forward. God has designed us to walk in the light of truth, to be clear in our thinking and understanding. But when someone continuously clouds the truth, when their actions contradict their words, they are taking away your ability to function with discernment. They want you to stay in this state so that you can't make decisions that are aligned with your purpose. It's a strategy to keep you stuck. James, for instance, was in a toxic relationship where his partner would frequently play the blame game. One day she would tell him that he was too controlling, and the next she would accuse him of being distant and emotionally unavailable. The contradictions made it impossible for James to understand what was truly happening. His actions were constantly scrutinized, his every word twisted into something it wasn't. This state of confusion kept James in a constant cycle of doubt. He couldn't figure out where he went wrong or how to make things right. Instead, he was simply left in a fog, unable to make sound decisions, trapped in a relationship that was neither fulfilling nor healthy. When someone keeps you in a state of confusion, they are preventing you from seeing the truth about who they are, and more importantly, about who you are. They are stealing your power to act, to choose, and to move in the direction of your purpose. You must understand that this is not accidental. It's a deliberate strategy to create uncertainty, to disrupt your peace, and to stop you from living with the clarity and conviction that you were meant to have. One of the most subtle and destructive tactics of those who operate under demonic influences is their ability to divert you from your true purpose. God has a plan for each of us, a calling and a destiny that are uniquely ours. But when we allow toxic individuals into our lives, whether in relationships, at work, or in our communities, they can slowly begin to pull us off course. These people may not even realize the damage they are doing, or they may be intentionally keeping us from our divine potential. Either way, the result is the same. You find yourself stuck, distracted, and disoriented, wandering far away from the path you were meant to walk. At first, the diversion may seem harmless. They might encourage you to take a detour, to try something new or different, or to abandon your original plans in favor of something that seems easier or more comfortable. But over time, these small distractions start to build up, and before you know it, you've lost sight of the goals you once held dear. They'll make you question your dreams, convincing you that they are too lofty or too risky. You'll start doubting yourself. Maybe they're right, you'll think. Maybe I'm not capable of achieving that after all. In Ella's case, she had a friend who always seemed to have an opinion about her career choices. Ella had dreamed of starting her own business, something that was close to her heart. But every time she shared her vision with this friend, her enthusiasm was met with doubt. Starting a business is a huge risk, her friend would say. You're better off just sticking with a steady job. At least you'll have security. Over time, Ella began to question herself. She wondered if she was foolish for wanting to pursue something so uncertain. She postponed her plans and eventually let go of her dream, not realizing that her friend's well-meaning advice was rooted in fear and not faith. What started as harmless advice slowly led her away from her purpose, and she ended up stuck in a job that drained her, feeling unfulfilled and disillusioned. The Danger in this type of influence is not just in the decisions they encourage you to make. It's in the long-term effect they have on your confidence and your faith. When someone constantly suggests that your purpose is unrealistic, that your dreams are too big, they chip away at your belief in your own potential. Every time you take their advice, every time you choose comfort over calling, you move further away from the greatness you were destined to achieve. It's a slow erosion of your destiny. You may not realize it at first, but bit by bit, they lead you off track. One small choice, one piece of advice, one subtle criticism at a time, and you find yourself adrift without a clear sense of direction. The enemy knows that when you lose sight of your purpose, you become ineffective, discouraged, and vulnerable. They keep you stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, constantly questioning your worth and your dreams. Example: Marcus was once driven to become an advocate for social justice, wanting to use his voice and platform to fight for those who couldn't speak for themselves. But there was a particular colleague in his life who consistently belittled his aspirations. "You're just one person," they would say. "What difference can you really make?" Over time, Marcus started to believe them. He focused on the comfort and security of his current job, putting his advocacy work on hold. His sense of purpose grew faint. He had become disconnected from his calling, influenced by someone whose perspective was rooted in limitation, not possibility. The people who try to lead you away from your purpose often do so with the best of intentions, but that doesn't mean their advice is what's best for you. These individuals operate from a place of fear, lack, or self-doubt. And when you allow their voice to drown out your own inner calling, you lose your sense of direction. You become disconnected from the passion and drive that once burned within you. They do not want you to fail. They simply want to protect you from the risks that come with stepping into your purpose. But protecting you from challenges means preventing you from growing into the person you were meant to become. Isolation is one of the most dangerous tactics used by those who seek to control and dominate others. The longer they can keep you isolated from your support system, the more vulnerable you become. They know that when you are alone, when you no longer have the voices of reason, encouragement, and wisdom around you, you become easier to manipulate. It's in this space of loneliness and disconnection that they can plant lies, distort your reality, and make you feel as though you can only rely on them. They begin to isolate you emotionally, physically, or socially, making you feel like there's no one else who truly understands or cares about you. Isolation doesn't always come in the form of being physically removed from others. Often it is subtle. It may begin with comments like, "They don't understand you like I do," or "You're better off without them." The manipulator may push you away from family and friends, claiming that these people are toxic or unsupportive. They make you feel as though you're too different, too complicated, or too unique for anyone else to truly understand. Over time, you start to believe them. You begin to cut ties with those who once lifted you up, and the only voice you listen to is theirs. This isolation can be both emotional and physical. Maria had a partner who made her feel guilty for spending time with her family. Your family always makes you feel bad about yourself. You don't need that negativity, he would say. Little by little, Maria stopped spending time with her family and friends. She began to rely solely on her partner for emotional support. And the more isolated she became, the more dependent she became on him. She couldn't see how toxic the relationship had become because his words were the only ones she heard. This isolation creates an emotional prison. Without the voices of people who care about you, you lose perspective. You start to think that their view of reality is the only truth, even if it's distorted. It becomes harder to see where you end and where they begin. Their influence over you grows stronger, and your ability to think for yourself becomes clouded by the constant reinforcement of their opinions. When someone isolates you from those who love you, they are setting up a dangerous dynamic. They want you to depend solely on them to make you feel like you have nowhere else to turn. It's a tactic of control, keeping you locked in a toxic relationship that keeps you disconnected from the support and wisdom that could help you break free. The more isolated you become, the more vulnerable you are to their manipulations. Example, Jake found himself in a relationship where his partner would consistently criticize his friends and family. Your friends are just using you, she'd say. Your parents don't care about your future. They're just trying to control you. Slowly, Jake started distancing himself from his loved ones. He stopped making plans with his friends and began to avoid family gatherings. Eventually, he found himself completely alone with his partner. She had succeeded in isolating him from his support system, and now she held all the power. Isolation can be subtle at first, but its consequences are profound. Without your support network, you are left to navigate the world alone, making decisions without the wisdom and perspective of those who truly care about you. You become more susceptible to manipulation, more likely to believe the lies that are being fed to you. And in this isolated state, the manipulator can control you with greater ease. These individuals are not just trying to separate you physically, they are aiming to separate you spiritually, emotionally, and mentally from the very people who can help you grow. They want you to feel like you are nothing without them, and that, my friends, is a dangerous lie. The most dangerous sign of someone under a demonic influence is their ability to continuously lead you down a path of sin and destruction. These individuals aren't simply encouraging you to make poor decisions. They are actively steering you away from the light, leading you into darkness, and enticing you into behavior that contradicts your values, your integrity, and your moral compass. Their actions are not just a matter of poor judgment. They are designed to trap you, to distort your character, and to disconnect you from the truth. At first, the path they lead you down may seem harmless. They may encourage you to engage in activities that feel good in the moment, gossiping, compromising on your values, or indulging in pleasures that lead you further from your moral foundation. The temptation is subtle and often wrapped in justifications that seem reasonable. Everyone is doing it, they might say. It's just one time. You deserve it. Life's too short to worry about consequences. Slowly, the little compromises build on one another, and before you realize it, you're caught in a cycle of sin and regret. These individuals don't just tempt you once. They continually push you toward choices that erode your character. They know exactly what buttons to press, what weaknesses to exploit. They may convince you that you need to hide certain actions from others, that it's okay to compromise in this situation, or that your worth is dependent on meeting their expectations. Each time you follow their lead, you lose a little more of yourself, a little more of your integrity, until you can no longer recognize who you've become. In Chris's case, he had a friend who continuously encouraged him to participate in things he knew were wrong. They would make jokes about cheating on a partner or lying to get ahead at work, always framing it as harmless fun. Why does it matter? You deserve to have a little fun, they'd say. The first few times, Chris felt uncomfortable, but went along with it anyway. It wasn't until he lost his job due to dishonesty. His relationship crumbled because of his betrayal, and his conscience weighed on him so heavily that he realized the depth of his fall. The destructive path that started with small, seemingly insignificant compromises had spiraled into consequences that altered the course of his life. This is the nature of demonic influence in the lives of others. It doesn't start with a major leap. It begins with tiny steps. Decisions that feel trivial but have deep consequences. These individuals encourage you to take risks with your morals, to entertain thoughts and behaviors that you would never normally consider, And because they are often skilled in manipulation, they don't force you to sin. They persuade you to do it on your own, all while keeping their hands clean. You may find yourself justifying your actions, convincing yourself that it's okay because the situation is different, or because you were pressured, or because it's just once. But with every step, you move further away from the person you were meant to be. The long-term effect of walking down this destructive path is not just the immediate consequences. It's the toll it takes on your spirit, your peace, and your relationship with God. Each time you yield to temptation, you build a wall between yourself and the purpose you were created for. You become more numb to the voice of conviction, more willing to silence your conscience in favor of short-term pleasure or comfort. You start to lose sight of the truth, and the world that once seemed clear becomes distorted. The more you follow their lead, the more you fall into a state of spiritual decay. The deception behind this manipulation is that it convinces you that sin has no consequence, that it's harmless, that it's an isolated event. But the truth is far different. Sin doesn't just affect the moment. It creates long-lasting consequences that ripple through every area of your life. It affects your relationships, your career, your mental health, and most importantly, your relationship with God. The longer you stay on this path, the more difficult it becomes to break free, to repent, and to return to the place of righteousness. Example: Samantha had a close friend who always seemed to downplay the seriousness of small lies. It's just a little white lie, they would say. No one will get hurt. It's easier this way. At first, Samantha didn't mind because it seemed like no big deal. But slowly, she began to tell lies herself to avoid uncomfortable situations or to make herself look better in front of others. The lies began to pile up, and the weight of dishonesty started to wear on her. She lost friendships, her reputation was tarnished, and her sense of integrity was shattered. What started as a small compromise in the name of convenience or peace had led her into a spiral of deception that she could not control. This is how the enemy works. He doesn't demand you to make huge, earth-shattering decisions right away. He begins with the small things, the things that don't seem to matter at first. He whispers in your ear, telling you that what you're doing isn't really wrong, that it's justified, or that you deserve it. And before you know it, you've compromised your values, your integrity, and your purpose. The longer you entertain these sinful influences, the harder it becomes to escape the cycle they've entangled you in. Moreover, the person leading you into sin doesn't just cause damage to your life. They are actively participating in your spiritual destruction. They are knowingly or unknowingly working to pull you away from your relationship with God, from the truth of who you are, and from the destiny you were called to fulfill. Every decision you make under their influence is a decision that takes you further from the light and deeper into the darkness. They are tools of deception leading you down a path that only ends in destruction. But the worst part is that they don't stop. No matter how many times you give in, they will always find new ways to lead you further into sin. They make sin seem attractive, unavoidable, and even necessary. They prey on your weaknesses, your insecurities, and your fears. They know what makes you feel vulnerable, and they use that knowledge to manipulate you into making choices that will harm you in the long run. The road to destruction is paved with these small choices, these tiny compromises that slowly erode your soul. What you may think of as inconsequential today will build into something that can break you down tomorrow. And those who lead you into this destruction, they will never fully own their role in your downfall. Instead, they will continue to manipulate, control, and deceive, all while leaving you to bear the consequences of your choices. When someone constantly leads you into sin, you are not only dealing with their influence, but also with the larger spiritual forces at play. These influences are intent on derailing your purpose. distorting your identity and leading you to a place where you can no longer recognize the person you were meant to be. You must recognize the pattern and the danger they represent before it's too late. Sin may seem sweet for a moment, but its long-term effects are devastating. And those who lead you into that destruction, they may claim to be friends, but in reality, they are enemies of your soul. As we reflect on these 7 crucial signs that someone in your life may be operating under a demonic influence, it's vital to remember that the battle for our souls is real. The enemy does not show up with horns and a pitchfork. Often, he wears the guise of someone we trust, someone we care for, or someone we admire. But the truth is that those who seek to divide, deceive, confuse, and lead us into sin are not just isolated individuals. They are instruments of a deeper spiritual force at work. The signs may be subtle, but the damage is profound. You might be thinking, how do I protect myself? How do I discern the truth in a world so full of deception and manipulation? The answer is simple, but not always easy. Stay grounded in your purpose, stay close to your values, and stay rooted in your faith. When you know who you are and what you stand for, the tactics of those who seek to derail you become clear. It's in your relationship with God that you find your true identity, your worth, and the strength to resist those who try to lead you away from your divine calling. We are all on a journey, and that journey is filled with distractions and challenges. There will always be people who try to pull you off track, who will tell you that you can't achieve your dreams or that you are not good enough. But remember this. No one has the power to determine your future except you and the Creator who designed you for greatness. The enemy's job is to make you doubt that truth, to make you question your purpose, and to keep you weak and divided. But you have the authority to overcome. When you encounter individuals who try to lead you into sin or confusion, who seek to isolate you or sow division, recognize them for what they are, tools of distraction. You don't have to fight them directly. Fight for your own peace, fight for your purpose, and most importantly, fight to stay aligned with the truth. Stand firm in the light of who you are, and remember that the truth will always expose the lies that surround you. You have been given a life to live with purpose, and nothing is worth losing that for. Protect your peace, your relationships, and your destiny. Don't allow the subtle, destructive forces around you to pull you away from what is meant for you. Stand tall, stand strong, and know that you are equipped for the journey ahead. The choice is yours. It is time to recognize the signs, stand firm in your truth, and reclaim the life you were meant to lead. Don't let anyone rob you of your purpose, because the world desperately needs the unique greatness that only you can offer.